Okay, hello. Really glad you could join us. And this webinar is really focused on the newbies and a refresher for many who still have lingering questions. Going through this, I've given other talks like this, but in this one, I am going to go through it as slowly and carefully um, as I can, um, just for complete clarity. Um, so hopefully, this will be the one we can send all other newbies to. And because of that, if I am not clear about something, please raise a question in time, because that'll help the people who come to this video afterwards. So I'm doing the first part of this in a frequently asked questions format. We've talked for some time on app and having frequently asked questions, so I thought this might be a good time to kind of start that section. So let's start off with the purpose of this webinar and the key question: what is ARV? Associative Remote Viewing. Now, ARV is an application of remote viewing. There are many different kinds of remote viewing styles out there, but you could use any of those styles with ARV, since you can apply any of the remote viewing approaches to associative remote viewing. Now let me give a definition of what remote viewing is. RV is the gathering information from distant locations and or distant times. Now, this must be done within a protocol which permits analyzing that information using the capabilities of consciousness not yet accepted by the current paradigm. So sometimes you might call that the paranormal, but I don't like that word. We are using capabilities that are very common. They can be trained, and it's just learning how to use it. Just like you have to learn how to do sports, how to play a musical instrument. So remote viewing has the additional feature that you're getting information that you could not get in the normal sense of the word. So you're using non-normal capabilities that are not usually accepted. And then ARV is an application of that. Now, in app, let me turn that. In app, and generally, ARV is in fact used for gathering information from the future. It doesn't have to be, and sometimes it is not, but most of the time it is used in the precognitive sense, getting information from the future. Second question. I hear the word target used a lot in both RV and ARV. What is a target? Okay, just like in archery, where the archer uses a bow and arrow with the intention of hitting a bullseye on a target, in RV and ARV, there must be an information target, an informational target, a target that's made up of information. The information target must be one which can be provided as feedback. This feedback provides the basis for measurement and learning. Really, just like in the bow and arrow case, it's a very specific thing. It is actually connected usually to a physical object, but the target itself, or objects, a site, a location, but the fact is that the target is the information about the physical site, because that is what you are describing and that is what can be verified. And that's why our targets are often photo sites. Other targets might be objects. Other targets might be, what is a person thinking about? In remote viewing, that was used a lot in the military. In fact, right now, one of our groups are using the emotion that a person might be feeling. John Knowles is doing that. So targets can be a wide variety of things, but when it comes right down to it, you have to understand it's really information about something that is the target. Now, photo sites, I want you to understand the definition of photo sites. It is not the physical photo itself. It's shapes, sounds, tastes, colors, textures, emotions, activity, concepts, etc. All that can be gathered as information from a photograph and verified from that photograph. That's what a photo site is. It's the information that can be verified from a photo. So you can obviously get shapes, but you can get sounds as well. If it's a picture of a major waterfall or a football game, you know there's sounds around. You can verify that. Etc. A picture of somebody eating something, or even food itself. When you go to that site, you are experiencing, your consciousness goes to that site. You might very well decide to taste what's there, and that might in fact be the information at that site which you pass back and forth between the feedback session and the remote viewing session. So photo sites have all of the information which can be verified from a photo. Now, just like in archery, I really like this example. You might hit the bullseye, but you might get close. You might not hit it, but you still might get pretty close. Or sometimes you might miss the target entirely. Same thing with an information target. When you do your remote viewing session, sometimes you're going to be just so right on, and other times you're going to get some of the information, and sometimes you're going to miss entirely. And you know what? That's fine. Every time you pick up the bow and arrow and shoot, you learn something, you get a little better at it, you're working with your subconscious. I mean, these guys that are shooting, how much of what they're doing do you think is conscious? And how much do you think is actually sort of built into them at the subconscious level? Most of it. In fact, they're like Zen archers, and they do it in very, very strange ways on purpose to get the very good feeling that it's not them that's doing it. There's another whole story on that. I won't share that now, but there really are very good analogies between something like archery and remote viewing in terms of the target. One, it's a physical target, and the other, it's an informational target. What is the associative in associative remote viewing? What does that really mean? Okay, so in ARV, the ARVer, the one who's doing the ARV, and we usually call that person the viewer, and that makes sense because that's the person that starts out doing remote viewing, but it's also the person that does the feedback session for sure. Those are always the same person, but we'll call them the viewer. Sets his or her intention and expectation to describe and sketch. So this is the quote. They get describe and sketch your, and of course this is an example coordinate, your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feedback target. Now, that's what they're intending to do. That's the tasking. That's the cue. That particular 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feedback target is associated, so this is the word associated, with one of the two possible outcomes. Okay, and we generally do this with sporting or financial events now. Now, obviously, there could be more than two outcomes. We are mostly focused now on binary ARV and sports or financials. But the key thing is this target, which we just discussed, and you're going to see it at feedback time, is associated with one of two possible outcomes. That is what the association is. Now, it turns out there are a lot of other associations that we'll talk about, but this is the primary one in terms of what ARV is talking about. So you're doing a specific informational target, and in remote viewing, that might be the end of it. But in associative remote viewing, it has an association with one of two possible outcomes. Now, these two outcomes, so these are possible outcomes. Outcome, focuses on what actually happens. We've developed the terminology, and it's very important for you to understand this terminology. It's quite simple to understand, and that is the two possible outcomes are called sides. So you will hear us refer to sides. Now, sides can be yes and no. Since we're doing binary ARV, will Team A win? Side yes, one side might be yes, one side might be no. In a financial, we might have sides of up. Will a stock move up 1% before it moves down 1%, or will it move down 1%, say? Which will happen first, up or down? Will the stock move up from the opening today to the close? Binary, two sides. That's all the word sides mean. Nothing associated with what's won or what's lost. Two sides. Okay? So, the association and the two sides. There is now, yes, a winning and a losing side. So one of these two sides will in fact win. One of these two sides will in fact lose. Period. That's straightforward. Once you understand sides, you get it. Now, how does the target and its coordinate get associated with the outcome? I should probably change this, with the actual outcome. See, that's what the word outcome usually means. While there are two possible outcomes, there's really only one outcome that actually happens. Okay, so let's answer that question. Now, first of all, you have to understand there are many ARV protocols and they use different methods. But conceptually, they must all do the same thing. They must make this association where there are going to be two associations and then somehow connect it with the one final outcome. I'm going to show you what we do in WE, because most of the people right now in app are in fact using WE. But as you'll see, conceptually it'll be similar. It's this first step in WE, the winning entangled protocol, which is actually different than some of the other protocols. Now, this is what you must get. The coordinate And let's just talk about the case where there's just simply one coordinate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is your coordinate. That coordinate is randomly, the computer does this, it's randomly associated with one of the two sides. So in a baseball game, for example, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that coordinate, that target, because this coordinate is also associated with the final outcome target, might be randomly associated with over, let's say. So let's take this example of over. Okay? So the computer has now said that this coordinate is associated with over. It has not said anything else yet in linear time. That's all it said. Now, when the viewer completes his remote viewing session and the transcripts are turned in Wii and in most other ARV approaches, only then are the targets chosen and chosen randomly. So this just guarantees its precognition at play. In Wii, we have 800 prepared photo sites. So after the remote viewing session is done and submitted literally to our server in Wii, so everything can be time stamped, only then are the targets, the two possible targets, and you see a pair of 800 choices. And these 800 choices are always controversial. They were controversial when they were first chosen. We have a group now trying to improve it, and it's controversial. What makes the best pair? What makes the best target? We're not going to go into that. This is what they are. They're the best we know how to do, and I know you're going to come across some that you love, and you're going to come across some that you hate. And that's the way it is. That may be part of why nobody's 100%, because good targets and bad targets tend to be rather personal. Okay, so here we are. We have our coordinate, randomly associated side, in this example over. And what have we done? We have now chosen a pair of possible targets. Now, we call these two possible targets A and B. In Wii, and notice the targets come up and there has to be a first one and a second one. We live in a linear world. It turns out their order is also random, but nevertheless, when they get presented, when they get chosen, there's one that's first in line. Turns out that one's called A. There's one second in line. That one is called B. So now they have labels. And in Wii, A is always associated with the winning side, and B is always associated with the losing side. You are the very first group to hear me use the word losing. I've gone out of my way up to now, and maybe it's even added to the confusion, of always referring to this as the other side, because from the perspective of we, these two sides are exactly equal. We don't care, photo site A, photo site B, neither one is better or worse than the other. Neither is one you should focus on more than the other, except how it's associated with the coordinate. And right now, I think you can appreciate why. This coordinate is associated with over. We do not know yet in linear time whether the sporting event, whether the total runs are in fact going to be over 7.5, or will it be under 7.5? Hey, will it be a no-hitter and the winning team only gets 1 run. The total runs could be 1, 3, 5. We do not know. Okay? If, in fact, so it's only after the game will the actual target association be known for sure. So the target, not the possible target, the real target will be A if the score is over 7.5, because now we've made the association with the outcome. And only then do you know. That's why it's called precognition. So if the score is over 7.5 points, the target will be A. But guess what? If the score is under 7.5, then target B will be associated with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that association is only known after the game. That's what ARV, frankly, is all about, because it is that target, of course, that is your feedback target. So the truth about the target 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is now known for feedback A or B, and the now means after the game, and only after the game in normal linear time way of thinking of things. Now we of course know with precognition that this information in fact can be gathered during the remote viewing session. And that's all you do. Almost everything I'm going to be talking about here, your intellect really does want to understand it and should understand it. And then most of the time it can drop it, because all you really want to do is describe and sketch your feedback target. Because guess what? This is the correct time, the correct association based on after the game time when you know it for sure, and that's going to be the feedback. And that was your job, to describe and sketch the correct feedback. So this is what the association is. And obviously it's critical to get, it will always be the truth. This association is in terms of the target and over and under is made after your transcript is sent, but it is known before the game. The computer has, in other words, established it so that a judge, which is, of course, this next question, how does judging come into ARV, and is it important? You know, if all I want to do is describe and sketch my photo site, why does judging come in? Okay. The analysis judging session is done after the viewer submits his transcript for coordinate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and before the game. So once he's uploaded his transcript, but before the game, that's when the judging occurs. So here comes the judge. That's a laugh-in line and goes back, I think, before that. Anyway, the AJ session, the analysis judging session, is extremely important because it's the judge who makes the actual prediction. And whether or not anybody wagers on this, the analysis and judging is a very important part of the learning, because the judge now is in a position to look at the transcripts, to look at the two possible targets, and that's what the judge does. He compares the transcript with the two possible targets, ranks them, and a good match is assumed to be based on this precognition, which is being called now more and more as retrocausation. These terms are the same, but precognition sort of has a perspective of looking from forward in time. I'm gathering information from the remote viewing. I'm gathering information while I'm at the remote viewing session, and I am knowing and gathering the information from the feedback session, but I'm starting at the remote viewing session. Retrocausation, retro, sort of has the sense of I'm at the feedback session now, and I'm causing earlier, in a retro sense, what happens at the remote viewing session. And the fact is both of those are going on at the same time. So, but the key here is you're looking for that good match, because only A or B will be the correct target. A or B as the actual target is determined by the outcome of the game. But here you are a judge before the game, and your perspective is very clear. If I get a good match, I know it came from the viewer because they know the truth at feedback time. So the judge's job is indeed to do the analysis and end off with the judging of whether it's A or B, or it could be a pass. And there are different ways of doing rankings. We'll talk about that maybe a little later in detail, but in terms of what ARV is all about, that's what the judge does. So, and it really does have these two aspects. One is making the actual prediction for those who are interested in the wagering, but it also is critical in terms of learning and teaching. The judge may be an independent judge, or it may be self-judge, but the judge is wearing a different hat when they do the judging. And this is one time where learning goes on, and the other, which is even, I think, more important, but they're both quite important, is the feedback session. Okay, so I'm going to do a review now, and then hopefully we'll go into questions, comments, and see if this did make things a bit clearer. So associative remote viewing has these three parts: the remote viewing part, the analysis judging, and the feedback. The cue, the tasking, is very simple. Describe and or sketch your, and we use the example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feedback target. As you all know, I like to say precognition begins during the feedback session because that's where the truth is known. Okay, and you know that you're going to know it here, and that your job is to key into that, period. And to describe and sketch it, you know, we've now used words, we use sketches, we've used clay, Play-Doh. I'm sure people will come up with other inventive ways as well, but it is a description of the information in the feedback target. Now, so these two sessions are intimately connected. The analysis judging comes in to make a wagerable prediction or a pass, and this is based on the two transcripts, each of which is connected to one of the possible outcomes. So we have two possible outcomes, and that's why we have two possible targets. Now, we're doing binary predictions, so I think I've already talked about these kinds of examples. Let's go a little further here and try to connect this up with what you actually will be doing. You will be getting a coordinate, same example, and that coordinate is associated with your transcript. In we, as I've said, the computer randomly associates that coordinate with, in the sporting examples, over or under. Now, while this is the first time I'm letting you know, but it's maybe obvious, but let's say it out loud. By default, your coordinate is called side 1 in the protocol, in the computer. So side 1 is also associated now with over, and that was a random association. The first photo site, as we've said, of the pair is the winning photo site, and that's called photo site A. The second photo site is photo site B. Nothing yet to do with side 1 or side 2. These are separate things up to this point. Okay, now notice if side 1 is over, side 2 is under. That's what you know in binary ARV. So that is, in this example then, side 2 is under, right? No, real complication here. Turns out all of these steps are pretty straightforward. Turns out there just are a lot of them in terms of understanding all the details. Doing it, describe and sketch your feedback target. Now, so photo site B then is the second photo site. Photo site A is the winning photo site. Photo site B is the losing photo site. If over wins, now remember in our example, over is here, you will see photo site A as your target. Okay, so that is what you'll see. If under wins, that's side 2, you'll see photo site B. From your perspective, each of them are equally likely at remote viewing time. That's why you don't pay any attention to all these details. All you do is describe and sketch the target you'll see. And you will see A or B based on whether over is what happens or under is what happens. I know I've said it a lot, but what's so funny is it's hard to get it to sink in deeply. And I'm hoping this will in fact do that. So you will see A or B based on what happens, and it's only then in linear time that it's determined. But your precognition can know that in advance. So you just describe your feedback target as a remote viewer. So the computer is not saying over will win, even though we call it the winning photo site. It's only the winning photo site if in fact becomes see, even I want to say it again. It is the winning photo site, but is not the winning target. The target from your perspective is either A or B. So if under, in fact, wins in the game score is 2 runs, you will see photo site B, and from your perspective, you will now get a hit if that is what you predicted. So you describe your feedback target. The truth is out there. Okay, and the feedback target is A or B based on the outcome of the game. So Your coordinate is associated with the transcript. So is your feedback target. But that is not known until after the game. So this is the same as before. Now, what is the target? The target is photo site A if over wins. And that's independent of how you judge it. So if you look at this comparison, so if we go back to judging time, you look at this comparison and you would probably not judge it real well. No vegetation. I don't see people at all. You can't be verified. It might be empty in there. Yeah, maybe I would give a 1 to this, a little credit, but that's about all. But if it turns out over wins, and this is kind of critical, if for whatever reason over wins, this is what you will see, period. You always see the truth. But oh, look in this pairing, photo site B is what you will win, what you will see if under wins, because in this example, your coordinate is associated with over, okay? And so photo site A wins, you get to see, I mean, if over wins, you get to see this one. If under wins, you get to see this one. And now if you go back, and that's separate from what the judge does, right? This is based totally on the feedback. But your job was to describe and sketch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I think we would all agree that this is a very good match here. So the judge would have predicted photo site B. We would have then predicted under and wagered on under if we were wagering. And we would have gotten a nice hit with photo site B, that being the match. But, you know, a different transcript, you might have gotten a miss. You might have said you thought it was photo site A, and you would have gotten a miss, and you would have seen this if, in fact, under wins. Okay, so if under wins, the feedback target is photo site B. Now notice, that was actually based on your coordinate, the losing side. Okay? See, we have to just have to say this correctly. And I didn't, and so I guess I'm more and more I understand why all of you get confused in this. So let's just say this again. The sides at the beginning are only associated with either over or under. Okay, so those are the sides, either over or under. There isn't any winning or losing at the beginning. The winning or losing words are only associated with the targets. Okay, photo site A or photo site B. So in this example, we said under wins. Now under is the winning photo site, and now you do want to call it the winning side, but you only know it's the winning side now. So side 2 indeed turned out to be the winning side because side 2 at the beginning was associated with under. So when you see your feedback photo, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 you're going to see it with this photo because you indeed won. But guess what? Even though you didn't do side 2, it is, you only did one transcript, that's one side 1, you will see the side 2 being the winning side and being associated with photo site B and under. But this is not the winning a photo site. And I know that is where the confusion is. That has now become crystal clear. And I just want to make sure, is this clear? It's the terminology of winning that, in my opinion, causes some confusion. Because this is the example that hopefully will make it plain to you that this coordinate at the beginning, when you're a remote viewer and before the game, could have been either one of these, photo site A or photo site B. And depending on what your assumed side was, you're then going to see the appropriate target, period. And you don't want to think of your target itself as being, you know, a winner or a loser. It's when you get at feedback time, you will always have a coordinate and its associated picture. So in this case, you will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that picture. You will probably remember it's photo site B, but that just doesn't matter. It's this coordinate and that picture because it's your feedback target connection there. Let me say one more thing, and then I'm actually going to stop here. I have some more, but I want to stop here for questions and comments. This side 2, we recommend those using we that they begin with only one coordinate, like this example, because hey, forget about all the intellectual stuff we've talked about. You describe and sketch the feedback you're going to see, and you get one feedback picture, and that's the end of it. And you can look at how well you did and all of that. It actually is super simple to actually do the protocol. Period. However, we has this feature of permitting, and we think it's actually a very valuable feature, of permitting 2 coordinates. So you can actually get a second coordinate. So in this example, let's imagine the second coordinate was 654,321, the exact opposite. You now have a chance of doing a second transcript. So you have 2 chances of matching. Because notice side 2 would, in this example, be associated with under. Now, in this example, okay, under 1, and, you know, terrific, you, okay, now let me just say this. See, this transcript is associated with under. Your side 2 is associated with under. Your side 2 transcript then would be associated with the winning side. I probably should make another view graph. So since this is associated with the winning side and it won, you will see this with that coordinate. And so your two coordinates would come up. It turns out the winning side, this picture would come up associated with the coordinate 654321. You would then do your feedback session with it with side 2. So side 2 would actually come up first because we do show photo side A first, and that's the winner. And then when you have two coordinates, you would see this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so the beauty of WE is you get to see both targets. Your subconscious doesn't have to peek ahead, which it sometimes does. It'll see it at feedback time. It'll see both of them, so it doesn't have to look like with even one coordinate. Okay, so when you have two sides, they're both independent, but they are supportive. Notice if your other transcript had said silver, circular-like, and you drew a triangle besides maybe a hemisphere and said structure, you could get a hit on 654321 matching this picture, photo side A, and so you could get two nice hits, both of which are being supportive of each other, or you might only get one, or you might get none. But it gives you two shots at it. Okay, I really want to stop here now. The next one is judging, but I don't want to go on judging. From the remote viewer perspective, has this helped intellectually at all? What do you think? Okay. I mean, because I'm prepared to do these over and over again until I get it so it's more and more helpful. Are there any questions? Were there things which weren't quite as clear as it could have been? On the outcome.
Marty, Glenn is typing in the chat box.
Yeah, I see. I think that people get confused on the outcome, under or over. You mean what the outcome means? What part of the outcome?
Hi, Marty. Can you hear me?
Hi. Oh, Glenn, you do have a mic. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Super.
It's all right. We're just going to note if I can just kind of recap on what you've just said, so
yes.
if I quickly understand it or not. So realistically, what we're doing is we're looking at an outcome of a situation, and there's two outcomes. There could be A or B in the future. The computer generates photos, A and B, for an example. It doesn't have to be, those two aren't associated. And then we have to describe our feedback target of what we see in the future. And that could be either one of the photo, but initially the computer then associates, or is it us that associate? I mean, we then have to then describe that that feedback target, which will be the outcome of whatever it is, whatever that situation is. And where I believe that sometimes when you say over and under is just if it's a game, it could be more runs. If it's finance, it could be it's going up. Is that correct?
Absolutely. In fact, when the remote viewers do their work, they don't need to understand outcome at any level deeper than the outcome is their feedback target. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so we just have to focus on our feedback target. And once we focus on the feedback target, we then describe it. And that will then, whatever we describe, we don't really need to know if it's over or under. We just need to describe what the photo is in each one of those session IDs, or the ID we're given the reference number.
Right.
Yep.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly right. You know, it's almost like everything I've done here for the intellect in fact, should be forgotten except describe and sketch your feedback target for that
Because
coordinate.
I did that. The one thing that I did notice is when I was doing the 2 coordinates, that's when I was getting confused to which one I should be asking myself to view, because that's what happened when I described them both.
Well,
and I think that what I realized is, for me, the first one I described was the one that wins. And I think is the one which is the outcome with the future. And the second one that I described was the second photo of that situation. And that's all we need to know. We don't need to know if it's under or over. The computer does that, and it tells us afterwards. And then we can go, oh, right, I understand.
But be careful. I think what you said might not have been exactly right.
Okay.
The first transcript you do is not, I emphasize, is not always associated with the first picture you will see. That is not your job if you do 2 coordinates. It is your job to take the specific coordinate number and associate that with the picture that will have that number at feedback time associated with it. That might be the first number, might in fact, like in this example, as it turns out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if that was the first number, and 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, okay, was the second number, you will actually see 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 first, because you always see photo site A first.
Oh, so we always see photo site A first.
Always. But the coordinate it's associated with, now that's if you're doing 2 coordinates. Okay.
Because sorry if this is a bit.
That's why we're doing it.
So in other words, if I focus on a coordinate, and when we do this, but surely that coordinate, is that always photo A?
No, that's the point.
No.
Because notice that coordinate was associated with over.
Yeah, it could be the end result of the future element that we're trying to
A or B.
predict.
It depends on which wins. And that's why the beacon idea, what you're really doing is associating that coordinate, that TRN, transcript reference number, that tag, whatever you want to call it, is associated with the final feedback target. And that's what you want to do, is when you see that one, it's going to be associated with that target, nothing else. It has nothing to do with whether it's the first one you see or the second one you see. Now, if you only do 1 coordinate, then you're only going to see 1 target. And that's why, that's why it's simpler conceptually at feedback. But it then could be either A or B. Like in this example, you will see, in fact, photo site B. But if you were to do 2 targets, you would see photo site A first always, but it would have been associated with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you would get photo site B, but it would be associated with 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Can I say something, Marty?
Please.
I just wanted to. I always like to simplify as much as possible, and this is my process when I do it. I just take the first coordinate number, and during my cooldown, I'm just thinking, what data am I going to send myself? What data am I going to write down for my feedback for this coordinate number? That's the only thought that's in my head. I don't care if it's a finance target or a sports target or over, under. I don't have any of those thoughts. All I'm thinking about is that target reference number and what data can I get from that. And then I write down all the data in my session, and I close out the session. Then I take a little break, go to the next number, remind myself that I'm doing another session, separate coordinate numbers. They have nothing to do with each other. I'm just going to get data from this other session, and gather all the data from that, and then close out that session. It's as simple as that. You just take your coordinates and get the data from it and finish your session. You don't have to think about anything other than the data that's relevant to that target number. And then the Wii software, when you do your judging, the Wii software takes care of all that thought process of over, under, A, B, all the stuff. You just need to match up your session with whatever photo comes up for that number. It's really very simple.
Exactly. Well said. Thank you. Thank you. And that's it. I mean, from what you actually do, it's very simple, and you do it exactly as John said. Period. From understanding it, that's why I went through all this, because the intellect seems to want to understand it, and that's fine.
I have a question. I got upside down for some bizarre reason this week, and it's still not clear to me. And I think I'm going to need to re-listen to what you're doing right now and what we're involved in, and take my transcripts and then the targets and then the feedback notes and look at them and stand back and see what it is where I'm upside down. But question, is there a place where I can practice this using 2 targets, not 1?
This always uses 2 targets, so I don't understand.
No, I'm thinking of practice sessions rather than doing real sessions with
I'd rather you continue doing it on your regular session.
Okay.
The only reason you're saying that is you're afraid to get low scores and misses, and that would be good for you to work through.
Well, yeah, it's also, I'm thinking that, like, if I could, like, set aside a couple of days and just do a blast out of multiple Wiis over and over and over again.
Yeah, that is different.
I have a comment on that. So doing a bunch of practice targets, there are guys like Lynn Buchanan. I'm not sure if the TKR site has it, but there's other sites out there that have practice targets that you can do that. But as far as we and APP are concerned, you can just do your sessions and score them both as zeros if it's a learning process and stuff. I mean, as long as you don't rank it highly, it's not going to count against you. You'll just get a pass every time, and that's, it's part of the learning process. It's fine. You can also there's a lot of sites out there that you can Google that will give you a target reference number, and you can just do a session and then see how you do it.
What you're practicing there is remote viewing, so you would not do the judging. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. And there are a lot of sites. We even have one, which will just give you a random target, and then you could do remote viewing on that. And that's good. That would then practice the remote viewing part, but it doesn't practice the judging.
Right. No, what I'm thinking of is doing the 2 targets at once. Doing 2 targets at once is a different process than just doing the remote viewing with 1.
Like an ARV versus CRV, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you a way you can do that if you're willing to open up some more Google accounts. It's really easy to open up a Gmail account. Then you just come in as a different person. If you have 10 Gmail accounts, you could then do 10 predictions on one Wii tasking. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, so but you're talking about real tasks, right?
It's okay. I'm telling you.
I think the scoring is very important. It's important for me to be honest with myself as to what is my outcome. But right. I wouldn't want to, say, go into Carve and do a bunch of taskings and potentially skew results in the end, if that makes sense.
it does, and I appreciate your worry, but I'm suggesting to you that you don't worry about that. I'm the carve manager, and one of the things I do is I look at the track records of the people now, and I
Oh,
give more credit to the people who have the higher track record. So I've
okay.
programmed all of that so I can do that. So
So
I
you can
really
really
encourage you to do the real thing, because
Mhm.
you learn from doing, if you do something different, then you're going to switch to the real thing, and there's a hiccup there.
I,
Gotcha.
I agree. You'll pick it up real fast.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and then one other thing, in terms of the miss that you got, I I mean, what you did was you had a case where you had a judgment like this, where you basically predicted that under's going to win based on what you gave it. Now, you gave it a 3.5. I didn't look at the session, so I can't say whether or not I believe the judging was good or not. I just didn't have time to do that. But I looked enough to know that we did the right thing, which is what you were asking. You thought there might have been a mistake. And I
Gotcha.
appreciate that. I want all of you to do that, because you know what? We're not perfect. The coding's not perfect. You have to always do that. But what happened in this case was you, in fact, would have predicted under here, and for whatever reason, over occurred. So when you saw your transcript number, you didn't see the picture you expected. That would have been the one you would have gotten if you was right. You saw this picture, and that was because you
Um,
got a miss.
okay, so let me explain, and oh gosh, I hope this doesn't just mix up the process. I ended up giving a 3.5 score to a transcript that came up as the winning transcript or the A transcripted feedback.
Look here now. Now stay with me. Transcript A, photo side A, is always the winning transcript.
Yes.
In your case, it was in the opposite direction. You predicted the equivalent of under, but it went into over. And so your transcript, if you look at your picture for the first one that came up, you will see it did not have the transcript number that you got a good match to. Oh, no, actually, anyway, the point is there was, no, wait, the point is there was a mismatch right. The transcript that you thought was going to do one here actually probably did show up with the winning. Right. It said winning it said winning target because it was the winning side.
Yeah.
Okay. But notice, and that was your transcript number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but it was a miss because you happened to make a good match to the other one, the one that was photo site B. So you got a miss. So the word winning was indeed associated with the side, the photo site that was the winner based on the random association that came way back here with the sides. So it was the other side. Intellectually, you just have to get what happened is you got a miss because you did not make the right association with your coordinate.
Right.
The fact that it came up as photo site A is the wrong one came up as photo site A with your coordinate is actually the fact that it came up first and was called winning is actually secondary. Because winning and losing in ARV, those two sides don't matter. What matters is that you get a hit, that you get a match with your coordinate and the target that you see at feedback time.
Yeah. This is the first time I've ever gotten so tripped up, and I'm wondering, I'm hugely dyslexic, like hugely dyslexic, and I'm wondering if this isn't just this hiccup in dyslexia that I've got that I'm not able to like switch out of, whereas sometimes I can.
Nah,
I don't.
no. In fact, I've heard of cases of people who have all kinds of strange things and they get into this or some other thing, and it's amazing. There isn't the equivalent. You're going to have to do more sessions to find out. You don't have a
Yeah.
big enough track record yet.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
Can I say something,
please.
Marty?
Yeah, please.
My suggestion, you know, because the two targets trip me up something fierce. I would just work with one target, because what happens with sometimes what happens is that you'll end up having blending. If you run the two targets close together in time, you know, if you do your sessions close in time, one target, well, you'll end up getting gestalts and perceptions from both targets. And I'm really bad about doing that, because you know, usually my first 2 minutes of the session involves both targets that are on the board. And then I have to go and focus on try and focus it on one target and hope that I can pick up, you know, where that change took place. If I do two targets, then I end up getting both targets in both sessions.
Jenny?
If I plan ahead of time. So
Jenny?
that might be I'm sorry?
No, Jenny, what I was going to say is Skip Atwater had the one-liner for that, and then I will amplify. And he simply said, don't do that. That was his one-liner to this, which is in fact right. And we know that this happens. We also know people can train themselves to get over it. We have plenty of people. In fact, the ones that are in APPI, you know, that are now professional precoggers, I like to call them that, are all doing two coordinates, and they manage very nicely, thank you, at the 70% plus level to use two. So, and some never even had that trouble from the beginning. So it's very personal. And some people have the solution of just going back to one, which is fine. I'm not criticizing that. Others, on the other hand, will stay with the two and work on the idea of using an anchor, what's it called? You know, something to connect up very strongly with that target. I used the word before. I can't believe I'm blanking on the word. You know, it's a connector.
Beacon?
Say it again.
Like a beacon. Did you say beacon?
A beacon.
Before?
Yep. Beacon. Thank you. So they will work on a beacon. They'll actually take half a bite of a chocolate chip cookie for one coordinate, and hold a rock for the second coordinate. You know, but you can do different things, and then pretty soon you don't even have to do that anymore. What you're telling your subconscious is, hey, pay more attention to the coordinate, the TRN, and only give me information about that. And you can get better and better at that.
I have a comment on that too.
I'll give it I'll give it a try. I'll give that beacon idea a try. I'll try two coordinates, because I haven't done carve yet. So I'll give that a try with carve and see what that. You can do two coordinates with carve, right?
Yeah, and see, that's why people will work on getting over it, because it gives them two chances to get a positive prediction. Okay, go ahead. Someone else was going to.
I do that too. I actually use a beacon. I hold an object in my left hand while I'm doing a session, and then whenever I do feedback, I'll pick up that same object, just so, you know, so I have physical and I guess wherever else the data comes from. But as far as the blending, I've noticed blending as well, and that tends to happen to me when I don't take enough time in between the sessions, and that's a personal thing. Like, you can, some people do them a day apart, but I would recommend just an hour. Do something get your mind off of that first session, do something else that takes your mind off of the data from the first session, however long that is, and then do your second. That blending shouldn't happen. But I have to say that if you choose to do the single target session, you're still going to have to judge between two photo sites. So you're still at risk of displacement. And if you choose to do the two target it's the same two photo sites that you're going to see. It just in my opinion, the two sites have more value because they're not necessarily incorrect. They're just in a certain order at this point. So I'm.
Yeah. Thank you. Very well said, John.
Yeah,
so much
I'll
of this is.
I'll give that a try because it's been a while. I mean, I've gone about 3 or 4, about 4 months with just one target, and you know, I'm it's not perfect, but it's better than it was. So I'll start giving the two, go back to the two targets again, see and see if I can beacon.
Jenny, what is that psi ability where you hold, you know, a person's keys and you can get information about them? What is that called when you hold an object and you get information?
That's called that's called object psychometry. There's a couple of different kinds. Yeah.
Did you realize do you realize what John did? He was doing precognitive psychometry.
That's called symbolic psychometry. It's where you use a symbol that isn't directly related to the object that you are trying to look at, that you're trying to perceive.
Right.
Symbolic psychometry is when you use a symbol of that target rather than the actual target itself.
Okay, okay. But it's almost like pressing on the rock, that information, or symbolically. But this is why a beacon is such a good idea. Because
I'll give you another common example of using symbolic psychometry is using tarot cards. Tarot cards are symbolic psychometry, basically. They symbolize something that is real, but they are not, the real target is not pictured in the cards themselves. They just symbolize it.
Yeah, okay, so that's cool. And that's like the associations too.
It's very similar.
Very good. I mean, this is so cool, and what we're doing is making it real. But when you do your tasking, it's just so important to just describe and sketch the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, your coordinate target, feedback target, period. And all this other stuff, if it's with you, I think gets in the way. That's why you do cool down, is to kind of set aside the intellectual and just allow the subconscious communication to do its thing, where you're connecting to something much deeper and that has more knowledge than the intellect. Okay, other comments, questions? I have a few more that I'll go through, but we actually beautifully covered some of them, because what I was going to again emphasize is you set your intention, and this is done during the cool down time for the remote viewing session, to create an RV transcript for your coordinate, your TRN, transcript reference number, that's a good match to the feedback target for that coordinate. So that intention is all summarized in describe and or sketch your XXXX feedback target. And the feedback session is really very similar. But now I'll just say it, you intend to improve your remote viewing. The truth is the feedback target for the coordinate, and you kind of know that. You're just trying to improve this whole process. And in a way, you are describing and sketching it again, but I always like to say using your RV senses. And this all becomes very personal. I circle mine, I mark them. The ones that are off, I do see if maybe I can make a connection. and then I will do additional sketches at the level of what do I wish I had done. But they're really where I'm getting into my RV senses. So, you know, if I say a color, it's not like I'm just looking at the color there. I'm actually trying to almost get back to the remote viewing session and what would have it felt like to have seen red or said red. I'm not a particularly visual person, and yet a color will come up in terms of a word. And how do I make that better and better? But the feedback session is where you do the learning.
I'm the same way. I don't, for some reason, I don't always see a color, but I'll get the word that comes up. But in my feedback sessions, I try and match some of the language as much as possible, just to throw my subconscious a cookie, like, hey, you got this right, and kind of write down the exact wording that I used that was correct. So it kind of imprints that, hey, good job, and then, you know.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's great. In fact, you talk about writing over. I always go over my coordinate and I say it out loud. That's one of the beacons. I sometimes use multiple beacons, but I always use the sound idea. You know, each of us has a very unique sound vibration. So I'll say the coordinate out loud, knowing it isn't the numbers per se that is what being transmitted to my subconscious. It's the intention that this same thing is going to be said at feedback time, and it's going to be coming through my body, and so all of that is what I do. And at feedback time, sometimes, in fact, when I say it out loud, I will write over the coordinate, which if you've ever seen my transcripts, I usually do anyway 5 or 6 times, and I will go over them. All of that, I believe, does help this beacon idea. Okay, so the targets, the feedback photo site, feedback photo site, feedback photo site. Now, the next thing is expectation. This is one which, I don't know, most people just don't do it as much as I believe they should, because I believe it'll help make them better. And is it more difficult? Yes. Sometimes you fake it. You know, it's pretty clear to have an intention. But even that, you don't want to have just like an intellectual intention. You want to have it kind of deep. I'm really intending to do this. But the expectation of I'm really going to do well, and to get into a spot where you're feeling positive about it. I think this is when Ulysses talks about syntropy and love and positiveness. It's here, getting into this place where you feel really good about it because you know it's going to be a good session. You know, I'm really going to describe and sketch my feedback target. And you get into the feeling about that. And you do that at the cool down time. So the expectation. And then during the feedback session, again, you're expecting to improve, you're expecting to learn. And you recognize this is a long-term endeavor that you're happily taking on because you would like to learn more about yourself and your subconscious and the communication channel, et cetera, whatever is meaningful to you. So all of that comes in not only, see here the expectation is expecting from here to here. Here the expectation is actually looking more into the future. You're expecting to improve. But what you're doing is expanding the communication channel around this expectation idea and getting the feeling for it. Okay, that's my best understanding on how all of this works. I don't think I really have anything else. The judging, you know, if there are any questions on this, but I think as you judge, more and more, and most people are self-judging. You should go back. The perfect example was Julie today. She gave it a 3.5. Okay, so that's right, that's the lowest you can give it and still say, okay, it's wagerable. And she should go back and look at that and see if she really thinks it is. And, and one time, don't change kind of what you're doing. This only has meaning when you do it for a long term and you get enough data, and that data isn't always the numbers that we put in, it's also your own feeling about what is going on, and you will become a better judge. Well, I'm just not going to, I say so much about feedback, and you all know that that's where it begins, and I believe that is so, so important. I also think that paying attention to yourself is very helpful. And that goes all along, including standing back. As you know, you get to look at your own analytical data when you finish your feedback session. It gives you an option to do that. And some people don't even like to do it. But I frankly believe, and I've chosen these examples in the low 60s, other times I've shown the 70s and even 80s. The cumulative is the red, the green you can see is the last 10, the blue is the last 10 days, it goes from 40, 60, 50, so it's the last 10 predictions, and the green is the 25. You can correlate things sometimes. There might have been something different going on with the way you did your protocol or what was going on in your life. But you at least, should take a little time to just think about that. It's not like you need to dwell on it unless you feel you want to. Another thing to notice here is this person started out, here there were, 10 sessions and didn't start out real well, but hung in there, didn't do real well here, and now leveled off at 60%. In fact, I will tell you that this person actually is doing both WE and some APPI stuff, which is obvious to me. He's paying more attention to that, and I really need to talk to him about that because he's doing very well there and not as well here. Anyway, those are the subtleties. The point here is this information can be helpful. Also, it lets me just point out that for the long term, don't get discouraged. Hang in there with it, and you can get better. I have so much data on that. People that hang in there usually get up to at least the 60% and maybe more, and they continue to learn. Oh, well, these are people who do in fact better, but I was a little surprised. Some people, when they saw that, said it discouraged them. Please don't let the fact that some people are doing really, really well discourage you. That should encourage you, because I believe all of us have those kind of capabilities. We just have to intend and expect kind of hard enough in a gentle, loving way with our subconscious to recognize that there's this communication channel with a part of us that is greater and has more information available to it than our normal day-to-day selves. And that's what you're trying to learn about and get in touch with when you do your cool down sessions and your feedback sessions. Okay, I'm going to stop. More questions, comments? Okay. Maybe we're done. And I will end it
This
now.
is a little bit off topic. You're talking about the I group. What is that all about? What is that about? I haven't been able to come to the meetings, so I've been doing extra shifts at work.
Oh, you mean the APPI groups?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You mentioned it before. I was just wondering what you guys were doing.
And there is a webinar, a video of a webinar out there on this. APPI is basically the institute. The I stands for institute, though I'm thinking of actually, whatever. Right now it stands for institute, and it is actually a 501c3 nonprofit foundation whose objective is to train and apply and develop with professional partnerships. So the people that are working on them now are professional precoggers. They're all now using We. If there were some other techniques that people came to me and could demonstrate that they had a hit rate equivalent of, say, 65, 75, in that percentage range, I'm willing to do other things. But right now, the demonstrations that people are doing are with We. I have a lot of We people. And we do Forex. I can't do sports with them because we're not in Las Vegas, and being a nonprofit foundation, I just didn't want to fool around with what most consider to be illegal offshore sports betting. And so that's it. And I'm encouraging everybody whenever I can to get their stats, get them up there, and then I will bring them into APPI. Right now I have no limit. We're doing very well. At App 2016, I showed the chart, which showed how well they're doing. Maybe I will see if, let me see if I can find it here.
What were you looking for APPI? Was it the last 10 sessions or the last 25? I forget.
25. 25. But I did have one person that did so many good sessions in a row. It was like, they got it, that I brought them in. In fact, that was the one that wasn't doing as well in Carve. That I brought him in, and he's doing well. But you see, you have to demonstrate this and have to be willing to do it for money. We've had, the have to feel comfortable with money and things like that. That's why I like these people to come from one of the Forex groups, not the Carve group. And so when someone gets interested or I see them, they're getting closer, I like to move them over to one of the other groups. Or they'll ask me, when you start feeling, hey, I'd like you to start paying more attention to me, or something like that, we can talk about it. Okay, let me, okay, this is App 2016. So this was the presentational stuff, and I did talk there about this. Okay, and this is the professional right here. So I have 8 people, or I had 8 people. It turned out 2 of them left. But you can see this turned out to be a private partnership. It was right before APPI got officially started, but it used the APPI approach, 50-50 partnering. Each of us put up $5,000. Now, APPI is a little different because virtually every single person here did not put up any money of their own. APPI kind of recognizes that a lot of the people who are in this just don't seem to have a lot of money. And what APPI did as a foundation is opened up a $2,000 kind of cyber account, if you will. You know, it's kept track alone as a partnership. 1,000 of it is funded by APPI. The other 1,000 is APPI's 1,000. So they didn't have to put up any money. Profits from it, though, are split 50-50. So they are, I don't quite know what the exact right terminology is, but they own 50% of the profits but are at no risk. APPI is assuming the risk. So I bring in people who I think are going to make money for both of us as partners, and we split it. And so this is the profit and loss from the different partnerships. This is the return on investment. Okay, and you can see, I mean, hey, in this day and age, if you make 8%, people are pretty happy. But you can see here with the good viewers doing this kind of hit rate, you can make very good return on investments. And that's what we want to expand on with more and more professional precoggers. So that is kind of cool, isn't it?
It is cool. It is cool.
And
I almost wish I was down in the States. Almost.
Well, you don't have to be down in the States to do this. These are we people. None of them are.
It would cause tax problems for me, I'm afraid.
Oh, you mean making money? I hear a lot of people say that.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is I'm both American and Canadian. So, like, I would be like making my taxes ultra complex. I already have to file 2 sets of taxes.
Well, so this you would actually be, all of these people are coming to us as what are called 1099 consultants. So I don't know if that'd make it easier or harder, but anyway, that's the reality. I would hope you would try to join us. If you wanted to, we could give the money to charity, or you're just supporting APPI. You know what I'm saying? I'd love you to get your performance more reliable.
My stats aren't to the point. I don't know.
You haven't.
Let me go work with double targets for a while, and we'll talk about it in a couple months. Okay?
Yeah. I had one person tell me that they were interested in this, but they wanted to give all their money to charity. I said, terrific. You know, I mean, exactly. We'll work it out. It's just, you know, the point is these become professional precoggers who are partnering with APPI in one fashion or another.
Maybe what we could do is, if I make anything, that we could, you know, like I could get a plane ticket to APP or something like that would work out.
Well, that would be terrific. Yeah, we would give you. You mean like the app 2017? You get. We would pay for it. Absolutely.
That would be. We could work out like barter type stuff, and that's right. That's not really gonna show up on anything, I hope.
No, that would be. That's a terrific objective, to earn enough so that you would get a free. In other words, we would keep an account, but it wouldn't be real money. It would be bartered somehow. As long as I'd have to make sure I felt that was legal. I don't want to do anything, as you would understand, which is illegal.
Let me get my stats.
I know we can do that, because that would be our understanding. You would just simply be giving predictions, and I wouldn't keep track of it in dollars the same way we are here. I would just keep a hit rate, period.
Okay.
Yeah. So we could do it.
Okay, let me get back on the two. Let me get back on the two sides, doing two targets again, and let's see how I do with that over a couple months.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about it. Okay.
That'd be great, Jenny.
I'll make that my goal. I will make that my goal for the new year.
Okay.
And that would be about right.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Any other?
Now, are you keeping, like, in David Silverstein's group? Are you keeping track of that as well? Because I've got a huge hit rate in that group.
He's keeping track of that, but he just, I don't know what to do. If you can get him to go for 4x, maybe we can connect it up. I don't even see his predictions coming out very often for some reason or another. So has he turned his group into something private?
Well, no, he's just not been, we haven't been doing anything, which is kind of frustrating because dowsing is like my major strong skill. And, you know, we're doing a direct dowsing and I'm like, you know, it's been I've only missed, in the time I've been in David's group, I think I've only missed like 2 or 3 times
Out
at the most.
Out of how many?
I don't know. It's been probably 6 months. I've done it every week.
You know, you should ask him that question. I mean, if it's only missing 2 out of 20, that's really incredible. So
yeah, I mean, it's like I can't miss in that. I'll get at least 1 hit, but I haven't missed many. I know my hit rate is impressive in that group. Well, I don't know exactly what it is.
You know what?
But I know I hit a lot.
I'm going to suggest something for you. I think there's one other person who's starting to do that. I don't know if they stayed with it. If your dowsing is that good, open up another, and you probably already have one. Most of us have multiple email accounts, and do the dowsing. Will coordinate 1 be the winning side, or will coordinate 2 be the winning side?
Okay.
You know, or just say, will coordinate 1 be the winning side? Just, you know, very simple. And then when you become the judge, set up the confidence rankings so that side is your prediction.
Okay.
And upload a dummy. What I have is a dummy text file that just says this is a dummy text file for ARVing or something like that. Because you do. Okay.
So I'm using my Phoenix. I can use my Blue Fire Phoenix account for that. I think I get your emails in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Jenny, is the group with Dave Silverstein, is that the chicken dinner group that you do the dowsing with?
No.
No. This is a direct side group. We do direct. It's not an associative ARV type thing. I just directly douse it.
Okay, I don't know about that group. Okay, thank you.
It's not been very active lately, David. It's like we're on hiatus, but we've been since June, and it's like you know, the thing is, that's like my strongest skill.
Yeah.
Wow. And
yeah, apply.
You know, I'm not hardly using it.
Yep. Well, use it here. That's the way to use dowsing here. So.
Okay, we'll set it up with the Phoenix address. I've got a couple other addresses we can use. I'll activate.
Yeah. Well, if you want to tell you another idea, because I've actually tried to get dowsers, and for some reason they just don't want to do this. The other is to put in The other is to put the dummy transcript up, look at the 2 pictures, seeing at the 2 pictures. Then ask your pendulum, you know, if you just want to ask 1, or you can ask 2 and get confirmation, but I think there's front-loading and dowsing too. But I think you know better than I do all the different things you can do with dowsing, so you could then make the decision after looking at the pictures, and the other way is to do it before looking at the pictures. But you might fool around with that, and period. So
okay.
I use dowsing during my RV sessions. I use prompting questions. You know, is there any more data that I can gather from this? Yes, no. Is there another gestalt that I need to list? Yes, no. You know, and then at the end of the session, I think even Scott dowses at the end of his session. You know, is this CR score correct, or is this the right one? You know, a lot of us do. We just don't strictly dowse.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see if I can activate the Phoenix address here. That's my secondary address.
Okay. So yeah. Okay, excellent, Jenny. No, I'm really looking forward to seeing and then in the comment box make a little comment about that. But I do think if you keep them separate, that'd be really valuable from statistics. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, I am going to end this now, and I thank you all for coming, and those were great comments for the newbies that follow, so I do thank you for participating. You
Well,
take
thank you
care.
for doing this.
Well, you're certainly welcome, and keep precogging.
Bye, guys.